Okay, it is.
Oh, here comes somebody anyway. I don't know who this is.
Renee.
Who just came? That's you twice, Renee?
I'm not in there twice.
Oh, who just came in on 1033?
Renee Fitzgerald.
Renee Fitzgerald.
Okay.
Oh, another Renee. Okay.
Oh, no, 2 Renees.
So, yeah,
That's why I was confused.
Now,
Renaming.
Renee is a potential alternate member, so she
Good.
got a different phone number than I expected, but
There she
Mystery
is.
solved.
Yeah, no, I'm calling my cell phone.
okay, great. Glad you made it anyway. We were just starting, Renee.
Okay, great.
We need to have a prerequisite that your name can't be the same as everybody else's on the board.
Or it has to be the same.
Well, you can call me Prince
2 names and you're
Di.
done.
No, I think you should all be called Brian. We'll go on the British boarding school model, and everybody will just refer to each other by last name.
There you go. Oh, you mean old Brian and younger Brian doesn't work anymore?
Brian with the beard, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
That doesn't work either, no.
Brian Lafredo just messaged, he's at work and can't get in.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're good for a quorum anyway.
Oh, he doesn't have a link. I'm gonna share my link with him anyway, so go ahead.
All right, so let's get going. Approval of minutes from October. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion. I read them.
Charlie's coming in, by the way.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Charlie.
Hey,
We just made a motion to approve October minutes.
yeah, they were very detailed and very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, poor Ashley. It used to be easy for her.
Yeah, there was way too much stuff to read.
All right, do we have a second for the minutes?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Up to reports. Now, I have a couple of things to say. In order to get us more, I don't know, organized and focused, stuff we talked about last month, I'm starting to look at other economic development commissions in the area. I did find that they're actually pretty organized.
I'm here.
Well, I won't. I was looking.
He's in. There he
One of
is.
my things is to. One of the things is to talk to the other EDC chairs, like we talked about with John Filchak. Looking at the minutes, one other group had mentioned the same thing. They've been waiting for a year to get the groups together and talk. We have one group who hasn't had a meeting since March.
Really?
One who's had one meeting in July. One group has a listing of all the members, but the members of the actual group, everyone is different. A single one of the listed members that's actually on the board. Eastford doesn't even have one. They just call it a planning commission. So it was hard to get any kind of, guidance or ideas from them, but especially, if we can get through this COVID thing, I'd like to meet people in person and maybe start doing some collaborating for 2021.
Well, I can say that I have good relationship with the economic development director for the town of Wyndham, which is Jim Bolano. He and I serve on the ERTD together. Delpha, of course, is the economic development director for Putnam. Wyndham's a much larger community, obviously, but they, I think, have a pretty well organized EDC. Putnam's obviously had their successes in town, although I think theirs is driven more by their business association than by a municipal department, strictly speaking.
No, I think
but
so,
Delta
too.
is obviously very active.
I think
Well,
so.
and I didn't look at, ones, a place like Putnam is so different from us. I was looking at the smaller towns, Pomfret, Woodstock, Eastford, Plainfield, more in line with us, that we would actually have more to talk about. Not that I'm against talking to people in Wyndham or Putnam, but the challenges would be different.
Brian, you
Yep.
said one of those other EDCs had been waiting for a year to try to get in touch with someone else?
No, I think they were waiting for maybe somebody like John Filchak, from the sound of it. And because when we were doing all of our stuff with NECOG, one of his goals was to get the EDC chairs together. And I was all for that and kept reminding him, and it never happened. I think that's what they were talking about.
Brian, did you happen to,
Do you think it would be appropriate for us to reach out to that other EDC commission and say, hey, we're kind of interested in brainstorming too?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, Charlie. I plan to do that. I would like to see how this COVID thing goes and do things in person.
Well,
So I'm shooting for 2021. Right now, I'm looking for something to focus on, so we have some goals. One more thing interesting, one of them, the minutes, and thank you, Ashley, for what you do. The minutes of one of these groups is all speech to text with all of the words that are misunderstood, wrong, and it was like 15 pages, speech to text.
Oh
Yowza.
my God.
And that's the minutes.
Wow.
Oh my.
That's why I'm not saying which town. I don't want to embarrass or look like I'm trying to embarrass somebody, but I'm saying, boy, we're in better shape than we thought. That's all.
It is my observation that despite being sort of perceived as a small community or whatever, that this EDC is pretty well organized and pretty active. I mean, I do have conversations with other, my counterparts in other towns, and some of them have the same title, and some of them, the titles are split. And but just when I was sort of trying to rustle up funds for that match program, I had occasion to talk to my counterpart in Lebanon, Colchester. It is, and these towns do have EDCs, but some of them have no budgets. Some of them really are not positing the kind of town-wide initiatives that we're looking at. I mean, they're looking at very, very, very small, isolated projects like starting a farmer's market, which we've talked about, but at the same time, we talk about a half a dozen other things too, and then try to push each of them forward. So it is my observation just from the year and a half that I've been doing this now as a job as opposed to as a volunteer, that we're doing better than you might think in terms of participation.
Yeah, and that's what I found, and that's why I'm saying, thanks to everybody, thanks to Ashley for her work. But yeah, anyway, that's it. I'll, next month I'll see if I have more for us. Like I said, to start planning and setting goals for 2021.
can I make some suggestions at this point for some goals, or is you want to, I'm not a member, so I can wait till citizens' comments, but.
Yeah,
Don't stand on ceremony, Renee.
What are you thinking, Renee?
Well, I know, Brian, you typically go and visit new businesses that open. I would like to see a more formalized program around that. because I think that, you know, we could do better as a town welcoming these new businesses.
We can always do better.
Yes.
We
And
do
I just
better
think if
than
we had
some, but
something
you can
more
always do better.
formal around that, you know, more than a casual visit to the business. That's all is one of the suggestions. The other thing, this came from Leslie, and she might have mentioned it at the last EDC. I can't remember. We're in so many meetings together, but she said, what's going on for Small Business Saturday? Is EDC, you know, so she's got some ideas, I think, around that obviously it's a little too late for this year, but I think we should put it on the agenda for a goal for next year. How do we help promote that? Even, you know we don't have a lot of walk-in stores that people are going to come shopping, but we can promote the region at the same time. We can promote the idea as an EDC, because we will eventually have more stores once that mill is open. So I thought it was probably a pretty simple thing we could add to the agenda.
Yeah, and we did talk about that at the last meeting, and we
Okay.
wrote something for this year, but it would have been in the library, and with more numbers of COVID, everybody's taken steps back. And I didn't get a lot of feedback from the TBA, which is where it would have gone through. So we did talk about it for this year. And you're right, I think we should do something for next year. I think we agreed it was a great idea.
Even this year, somebody could do, if somebody's so inclined to write a story about the small business shopping day, and that can get posted. We can share stuff on our Facebook at least, so that people, I mean, of course, people are pretty aware of it. We hear it a lot, but I think, these are national initiatives that we can participate in, that are, things are out there we can just kind of latch onto and
Yes.
become part of. That's it.
Yep. I wrote down what you said, and thank you. Okay, Joe, how about treasurer report?
Well, we're looking good. We still have $21,598.71 left in our budget. Of course, we just started, so that's why we have a nice flush account. Well, kind of just started.
Yeah.
We're still in the first half of the fiscal year.
Yeah, so we're looking good.
Can't go by fast enough.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on the budget finance report? Okay. Update on. Actually, I want to skip ahead a little bit to the one item under old business, and that's the EDC membership. Since we have Renee here and we have Brian Lafredo listening in, I did get a resignation from John Sharp, brought it into Amy and to Renee, so it gets official. Renee updated our website to get the names right. We got Tira off as an alternate.
I'm only a year late.
Well, from what I said, looking at other towns, we're good.
Oh, no, I'm not pointing at you. I'm just saying,
But
we're
thank
looking
you.
at that site every day and we keep missing things, so.
So we did get Brian Lafredo moved up as a regular member. And we need that noted in the minutes. It's going to get brought up at the December selectmen's meeting. The other things, Brian Santos and I are due for renewal the end of December.
Okay.
It's brought up at the December 1st selectmen's meeting. We'll get notified and we'll have to go down and get set for the next 2 years.
Okay.
Now, Brian Lafredo coming in is taking John Sharp's slot, which does not expire until December of next year. So Brian will be okay for now. And the other thing is Renee Fitzgerald is online. She is the one that I told you about 2 months ago, who was interested in sitting in and possibly coming in as an alternate. I did talk to her earlier today. And so we'll see what she thinks tonight, and I'll have a form for, to sign her up and turn in if she decides to stay with us.
So we could always, just so you know, the link to that application for volunteers is right on the website.
Yeah, I did talk to Amy, and I did pull it, and Renee's having trouble with her computer right now.
Oh, okay.
So I can either direct her to it or fill it out for her over the telephone and turn it in. We'll get it done if she decides
Great.
she can stand hanging around with us. We'll see.
Well, everybody behave then.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you do that, Joy.
So somebody keep
Come
an
on,
eye
we're a
on.
barrel of laughs. Nobody has more fun than EDC.
That's right.
That's what we tell. She's going to find out that I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but anyway. So yeah, I wanted to get the old business out of the way. So, and as far as Brian Lafredo, I don't know if we just have to mention it or make a motion. But if it's in the minutes, I think we should be good. Right? Do you know, Renee? Do we have to do anything?
It makes sense that the board do a motion that they recommend to the Board of Selectmen that Brian get moved up.
I make a
Okay,
motion.
I'm gonna make the motion that we recommend Brian Lafredo to the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second that.
To Ashley, just, moving from an alternate member to a full member.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't need a form or anything. I verified with Amy. Just have to do the verbal thing and he'll be set. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're official. Okay, now back to item 4, which is update on businesses in town. We have, I sent you the two for Beam Concrete Construction and for Sherry Mountford EA. I also see on our website that Quest Martial Arts is on Riverside. I don't have paperwork for them. And we know that Building Blocks Daycare reopened with a new owner. So those are the 4 that I have for, the 4 I have to mention. Anything else on new businesses?
It ties in with the intern. We did have the intern interview Mike Bogdansky and his partner, Kristen Dewthorne. So we did a story that went on the website. So once we go back out and find a new intern, because we're losing the one we have, I'd like to continue that. So if we can communicate on what you think, which business. I just happen to know that Quest moved. My son goes there, so that's like, oh, that'll make a good story. So yeah, I think that's a help to the businesses.
Yeah, I liked it. And that's how I found out about Quest. I saw it on our website because I didn't know. Again, I didn't get paperwork for them. So
Well, if they're going into the commercial building, right, they don't need to get that. They don't need to special permit or anything that goes through planning and zoning, right, Tara? They don't have
if it's an existing building and an approved use, there's no
Right.
further work for them to do. Those trade certificates we see are usually for home ocs.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to citizens' comments. And here, at this point, Renee, Fitzgerald, you could say something if you wanted to.
So I'm just kind of listening in and just taking it all in just to see what it's all about.
Okay. Well, you're totally welcome, and let us know if you have any questions or wonder how things work, which we all do from time to time.
Okay.
Okay, new business. Last month, and I don't remember why this is here, we had website notes, which was going to be put under new business. And that's been that Renee updated the EDC roster. And
well, I had sent you and Renee that link to the new EDC webpage for Wyndham, which was also hosted by Civic Plus. I think that might be why that item is on there. I just sent it over as an example, and I think Renee was looking into some of the enhancements that they had used.
I did not look into any enhancements. It seems to me that that's seems very much a separate build out, like we initially were talking about a year ago, right, for EDC. And then we met with Millard from Civic Plus, who we covered things, and he felt at that point, the current site could do what we needed for EDC. So I don't know, the Wyndham is an awesome site. It does look like it's a special build out though.
They do have a department, an economic development department. Jim Bolano has an administrative assistant who does stuff like that. She's very nice and she's very good, and I'm sure that plays into why they were able to get something so flashy.
okay, and this is something I wouldn't mind if, you know, as time goes on, people look at our website. I'm talking about, you know, us in general, and if we see something that could be changed or updated, you know, like the EDC roster, you know, let's put it on the agenda. I don't see right now a need to have it, you know, a running topic, but just send an email over and I'll put it on the agenda, and we can talk about what needs updating or
That's absolutely one of the recommendations to the marketing plan, is that each department complete audits, you know, of their own website page on the town's website.
yeah.
It might not be a bad idea to keep it as a monthly agenda item. You know, it just might be something that you skip over or just address very quickly in many months. But as we either discover that things aren't working optimally or have ideas on how to, you know, enhance its utility, you know, enter them in that way. Here comes Charlene, by the way. I mean,
Okay, well, I don't
what's
mind
one more
leaving it on.
item?
I just don't want to, you know, overload our agenda with stuff. I mean, another thing I've seen with EDC, other EDCs and other groups is they have a real minimal agenda. Ours is, well, ours has more on it.
Because we're a busy
Yeah.
group.
Because we're busy.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Can I ask? Go ahead, Joanne.
I said it wasn't always like that. I mean,
No.
you know, we could 5 or 6 years and see, you know, we were searching for something to talk about, but
Good point.
as evidenced by the notes from last meeting.
oh yeah, I know. Like I said, poor Ashley, she probably thought this was going to be an easy job.
Poor thing.
All right, under new business, the second item is discussion regarding an income line for EDC. Tara had, well, there's two things.
Yeah, I mean, we know that in 2021, there's going to be dollars that have to come in and go somewhere
Right,
that are related to EDC projects. Those two things being the garden and those pop-up chalets and whatever tent vendors get attached to the pop-up chalets while the full 11th Village is building itself out. You know, for the Maker Faire, we dumped that money in the rec account and then paid it out to Thompson Together. But if that program works the way I feel it should work, that money should be coming in for EDC. They're sponsoring the project, they're getting the money back to maintain the project and also put it towards other initiatives. But right now you have no income line. So
Right.
I'm stowing money like the donations that we're getting into the grant fund. That's okay in the short term for some of this stuff because they're one-offs. But once it's not a one-off anymore, that's not a tenable position.
So that, you wouldn't have an income line in that general budget. You'd have very much like what Leslie has in what we call our revolving account, or where money comes in for programs and goes out of that, and that's not voted on at budget time. So there's no set amount of money. She's got, say she's going to run yoga for the year. She, advertises, collects the fees, and then pays the instructor and the bills out of that account. It doesn't run through that general account. So it sounds like you're looking for Orla to set up one of those revolving.
Yeah, that sounds right. Right, Kira?
Would be
Yeah,
separate.
yeah,
from
that
your
would
EDC.
satisfy the needs, sure.
Yeah. That's
Just so we can itemize and show where stuff is coming and going.
They will look at it. They look at that spreadsheet for rec. And they have gone in and taken, if we had balances in there, they've gone in and taken money back. So say we, quote, made a profit this year. They've gone in and taken that, Board of Finance has. But
That's
just,
okay.
But
they don't do that from Trails. They don't take Trails money away.
Well, some of the accounts are, they're restricted, right? So maybe that's what Trails has. It's a restricted type of account. Rec also has a restricted account where we get donations and they can't come in and touch that. That's restricted, so.
Yeah, I
What
would
do they
think
have
they
for a
could,
budget, though?
I
From the
would think they couldn't touch Trails because it's all volunteer. That's not
That's-
town money. It was never town money, so they can't take that money.
Exactly. None of the money came through the taxpayer. That's it, Brian.
So if we were to get a grant, like some of these that Tira has applied for, and we want to put it in a safe but reviewable spot, then we would need a restricted revolving account. And is that?
No, the grant funds operate already differently. There are grant accounts, and we meaning EDC in this case, already has a second budget holding those grant funds that have been reimbursed back to the town to EDC. But it doesn't appear under the general budget because of the mechanics of the way her spreadsheets work. But I have forwarded the most recent update of that to Brian. No, what Renee's talking about makes sense. The other thing that makes sense to me based on what Lafredo just said is, if you're taking money in for a program, a self-sustaining program, as we envision both the gardens and the pop-up shops and the vendor tents and whatever to be, that is also not town money.
Yes.
So those things do need to be in a protected, restricted account.
Okay.
Yeah, they would, because
You just put yourself on mute, Renee.
You're at mute, Renee.
trying to, so you're right about that. But how they felt with rec, so those are all fees coming in, but we have this other budget over here, just like EDC, right? You have this other budget. So they feel like they're giving funds. So if they take a little bit over here, it's just setting what they're giving you. So you're right to protect it. Have that full conversation with Orla, and maybe she should come to the next EDC to explain it to the group.
I did ask her to look into how to do that. So she said she was going to do that. So I will ask her then to join us in December.
Do we need a motion to put this on the record?
I don't think so. We don't have it I mean, we haven't formed anything yet.
Okay.
I mean, if we're still looking at how to do it, Charlie, so.
Yeah, I would
Well-
save the motion until Orla joins us so that she can tell us exactly what we have, how we have to phrase that, what exactly we're asking for that she can do. And then that'll give you the precision that you want.
That's right. For this agenda, I had phrased it as a discussion. We'll get more information and then we'll do our legal stuff, our motion and approval. All right, that's all I had for new business. We're up to progress reports. Let me shut that up. We're up to progress reports. We have the CZGP, the Connecticut Community Connectivity Grant Program funding. And Tara, you had done a draft for that grant
Yep,
in
that was-
October.
Yeah, that was submitted on time. I might have in my email confirmation of when those notifications are. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. I think those notifications come before the end of the calendar year. I don't know. I submitted I can't even tell you how many grants I've submitted in the last couple of weeks. And I think most of them are notified around the same time as well. But yeah, so that's actually the same line item essentially as number 6 in as far as you've indicated grants submitted on that agenda item. We can talk about the wayfinding plan separately, but in terms of the grant, that is submitted and just plain old pending.
Yeah, it's dizzying looking at all your emails and all your grant applications, and they're all initials. And to me, they all sound the same. So I'm glad you're doing
Well,
it.
It doesn't help that a lot of them are different aspects of the same project either. It gets very confusing.
Yeah. Okay, and number 2 is any updates on the marketing and branding plan with Sullivan and Lashane.
Yes. Tara, do you want to enable sharing?
Oh, yeah, where am I? Allow participants to share screen. You should be okay now.
So you guys see my PowerPoint up?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. It's up on the screen. Oh, you know what? I got to share the screen first.
Yes.
Okay, so based on the Sullivan and Lashane marketing, we as a group in branding thought we'd going to put together some presentation for the Board of Selectmen, then it would go to the departments and boards and commissions. So this is a draft of a PowerPoint that's started and it's up for edit. So first is going to be a letter from the first selectman, which is not here yet. It's blank. Then we're going on to an introduction. Basically just came right out of the report. This is just an easier way, I think, to show it and a little bit more probably fancy way to show it to the board. Goes a little bit about the history of the project. These are the tactics that Sullivan and Lashane included in the plan for us. Thompson key messages and timelines. They're talking about that July 17th. We had a message development session where it was branding plus other folks from the general community to kind of flesh out some ideas about messaging. This is just talking, basically telling you what it is, what key messages are. the three that were identified by Sullivan and Lashane from that workshop was, number one, that Thompson brings all the advantages of a New England countryside combined with easy accessibility. That was one of the big things that theme that played through that morning was, it's right here. We're conveniently positioned to Boston, Hartford, Worcester, Providence, reach for Thompson, we're closer than you think, are some of the things out of that number one message. Second message was Thompson is a welcoming, green and growing community, because we had really kind of gone into this whole marketing plan with that basic tagline, green and growing. So that was definitely one of the messages that came out of that morning as well. And the third was that Thompson is committed to achieving growth in a way that is green, sustainable, and innovative. And these are, again, those sub ideas that came out of that message. And they talked to, the importance of taglines and what they are. I just included this as a sample, there you go, Brian. Walmart, save money, live better. So just to give people an example of what taglines are. This is still a work in progress. Talking with Tira and Leslie today, I had put this slide in because it was municipal, it was cities, so that was closer to home. And then they suggested that I use more of a graphic for this as well, like I did for the company. So I'll be probably switching that out with some sort of graphic that represents these taglines for different cities. So I don't know, some of you are probably in our branding where so here are the taglines that Sullivan and Lashane gave us: follow the trail to Thompson, all trails lead to Thompson, find your way to Thompson, find your way in Thompson, reach for Thompson, it's right here. And lo and behold, our own Charlie said, why don't we just do Thompson CT, find your way? And it clicked for the branding group. So that's where we landed. Not that we're not going to be using the green and growing community as well. So those are kind of interchangeable things. This is the style sheet that Sullivan and Lashane provided for us. You see that there's specific fonts. You see how they broke down the logo so that we can use the full one that has the graphic or just the words. And then as we kind of work through it, Leslie again she was, what if we just cut the Thompson piece right at the wave and have that as one of our logos? And we loved it. So we went back to Sullivan and Lashane, and they graciously created that for us, as well as just providing us the picture separately. So it is our goal, and I have a list of goals as we go through, so let me wait till we get there. And this was really a nice tie-in, and Tira and worked hard with Chelsea from, of course she's with a new company, but for this, the wayfinding. I don't know if these are big enough for you to see very well, but there are two versions of the sign, one that has the full logo, and then a lower version, which just is the logo of the mill tower. I love them both. So I think, I don't know where that decision's gonna lie. Tira, I don't know where that's going from this point.
Well, what I had suggested in an email back to somebody, and I don't even remember if it was to you, if it was to Kelsey,
Yeah.
From my perspective is, if the Board of Selectmen does in fact endorse these designs, then option A, the top grouping, is the one that we're going to use. If they don't endorse these designs, we have the backup on the bottom there.
Yeah.
Kelsey said there's no fundamental difference between the fabrication costs for this and this, which was a thought I had, because this one has, a 4-color process. But for what they're doing, it does make sense to me that they'd be close to, if not exactly the same.
And just great work coordinating all this, because it just did come together.
I just want to give kudos. I absolutely love that top one.
Yeah.
I think, when you look at a sign, it gives the perception of recreation, and you don't even have to read anything, and you know what you're going to get. Right. And I just love that right out of the gate. So really well done on that top one. I think that looks great in the green.
Oh,
Great.
the final one that they produced was such a massive upgrade from the interim steps. It was just a relief.
Yeah.
For whatever it's worth, while we're on this slide, because I didn't mention it when we were talking about the grant thing, the total amount of the grant request that I've made for fabrication, which I think was for a total of between 32 and 38 signs. I can't remember the exact number. With overages, I've asked for 157 and change. So if that grant is awarded, then we have a good start. And that sounds like a lot of signs, but there's still a lot of places that don't get marked with those, just based on that first report. Those were really key destinations only identified in that first batch. But it's still substantial progress if we get that award.
Yeah, it'd be great.
And you don't have to show the map. And I'm just curious, is there a map that shows like where the welcome sign is? I'm assuming is at 200 or where that first sign is. Is there like a
there's a few of those. I want to say there's 4 or 5 of those primary gateway signs.
Yep.
Which is what you're referring to, and they would be at the obvious places: Route 200, the 395 off ramp, I guess.
Going northbound. Yeah.
Headed northbound. The Massachusetts line, the Putnam line. There's one more. Well, there's 2 Massachusetts lines. There's 12 and 131. So I think those are the 5 for that very first image, and then everything else gets located.
Really good job. It's this stuff is what creates the momentum to get things moving. It's the little things that equal the big things. I know we've talked about that in the past, but this really looks good. And I'm looking forward to seeing it if hopefully it gets developed quickly. This really good job. Awesome.
Good to hear.
I
Great
agree.
feedback. It was painful.
But at least it's worth it.
Thanks. That's true, Brian. All right. So next steps to launch brand and incorporating logo and tagline. 30-day goals. The 2 fonts that they're recommending, we need to get downloaded to all our PCs in the town hall because we do not have them. Electronic letterhead and other electronic documents, easy enough to do in the 30-day goal. Email signatures, and I'll show you an example. I've already done it for mine. I threw this in there because it is one of the projects and I've got to fit it into this document somewhere. Sullivan and Lashane recommended an event calendar be added to the website and be specific, for the bigger events. And so that's a piece that can easily be done. We've already met with, we had a call, Leslie, I, and Marie met with Civic Plus on a call beginning of the week, and he's working on incorporating a dummy, because it's not going to go up right away, of the calendar plus the logo being incorporated on the website. So upon completion of the first 4 internal goals, we're going to integrate with the website and social media. We're trying to do this like kind of all at the same, there'll be a launch date, again, with a press release blast. 90-day goals, in-house print copy. So let's just say the transfer station brochure that's produced in the tax office, right? They may have 100, 200, 300 copies on hand. They're not going to toss those out. So we're going to try to incorporate the logo and taglines and everything in-house. And we're looking at 90 days. And of course, this is all flexible. Some of the longer goals would be, and like the real professional brochures that we do, or handouts, flyers, advertisements that are outsourced. Some people, I believe, are still using letterhead that they buy from the printer. So if that's the case, we want to get this logo incorporated. So, and this isn't quite all fleshed out. There's probably some other goals that we need to throw in there, but it's a work in progress. I am shooting to get to the December, I want to say it's the 8th is the first, 7th or 8th is the first selectmen's meeting in December. And that's the goal.
No, I think it's the first.
I think it's the first, Renee.
Oh, is it? Okay, well then,
Yep.
that's coming around the corner. This will be ready for then, so it'll be the first then.
That's actually a good point, start point then, because if this is a 30-day goal, you can just make this the month of December goal, right? We can get all this stuff done in the month of December, which is a relatively slow month.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
That'd be great.
on to the next slide, sorry. I hit the button accidentally. Well, the key here
That's
though is what you're looking at now is just samples of letterhead that I did. But I think what I'm gonna have to do is create them for the departments based on whatever look that they want, using whether they use the full logo, which is, you'll see the top, you know, and I did the town clerk, and then Tara did one with planning and zoning, using this small, obviously you can see that. I think it's gonna end up being a personal choice for the departments, which I think is fine, because it still all ties in. And other people might have different ideas that we can use to do the letterhead. But I think if we're gonna see this happen in the departments, I'm gonna have to create them for them. I don't think that they're gonna take the initiative. Some of them may, most probably won't take the initiative to create it's not that. But, so we'll see if 30 days, if I can get it done in the month of December.
Well,
And
if
then-
I slow down in December, I can help you with some of that,
Yeah.
Renee, because that is something I can help with as well.
Okay.
But
So
it's
this-
very
this-
dependent on how my December ends up looking.
Right. So the next slide is the email signature. So when anybody's sending out an email, we want the logo included. Currently, we have the Instagram and Facebook logo on them, on all pages. When our last intern was in, he went around to each department and added that. So we want to get them to get that, they're just trying to show them examples of how they should be using this. We want them to be thinking of using this in you know, different ways. I mean, even Leslie was talking today, and she said we should even have at the end of our voicemails, you know, I don't know, Thompson CT, you know, find your way, some voice message that ties in as well. That probably should have to be, will have to be fleshed out a little bit more. And so that's kind of where I'm at so far. I'm open to suggestions, ideas, anything to include, because, you know, like when you're doing this, you think you covered everything, but then you know, then you don't.
I think it
I
looks
think it covers what we need to cover.
really good stuff here, Renee.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want it to be too long and you know, people zone out on it. So this covers what you have to cover. I think it's a good job.
Okay. I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah, I'm sure you've already made the note to yourself, Renee, but like we discussed right before we left the office, adding the Pantone specific colors in the headers and borders, just to keep everything having a visual element, even if you're not presenting the logo itself until a few slides in.
Right, and the other thing is that because I don't have one of those fonts loaded on my computer right now, as soon as he loads that, I guess I'm gonna go in and just change the font to match what we're saying you should be using. So,
But Renee,
Yeah.
I downloaded one of those just off of that slide that you showed that had the listing. I downloaded the Gabriella just by clicking on it.
Yeah, that's not the issue, Charlie. The issue is that it's locked for an admin password, and that admin is our IT person.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, I don't think it's a big obstacle. We'll get it done.
Okay. Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome.
Okay, the train wreck site, we had the design workshop on November 10th. Yeah, almost half of the
Indeed we did.
participants were in Thompson. That went pretty well, right, Tara?
Yeah, I think everybody was pleased. I actually had a debrief call with our National Park Service partners today. So we've established some, next steps, getting the results over to the Yukon design team so they can start to incorporate that into their half-year report. We've got to get another, working group meeting together, I've asked Karen to put that on the trails agenda so we can get back into that workflow. There were about 30 participants. Again, certainly majority people who either live in Thompson or were already involved in the project, but some people who were not previously involved, some of whom were pretty significant contributors during the open discussion at the end, like Maureen Nicholson from Pomfret. She's the first selectman there. Lori Giannotti, who works for Connecticut Deep, and her feedback was excellent. She was completely stoked by the project and, speaking on behalf of the people who actually own the property, right? So that's significant. I think we'll have nothing but support from them as we continue to move forward. One of the things Steph and Elizabeth and I talked about today is probably doing a follow-up workshop in the spring after these initial results are incorporated in part by the Yukon kids for their design project, so we can show like some interim fuller designs for people to choose from, prefer. All of this is working towards, as always, another series of grants for me to write to actually get funding to move it forward. We've identified 3, 2 for this year and 1 for next year to take a shot at in differing amounts and for different aspects. Just off the top of my head, some of the live poll results that came back, almost everybody wanted a reproduction of the historic depot or something that looked like it for the pavilion. I was not surprised by that at all. And in fact, I think we've been saying that all along, but we have that sort of as a poll result. The other thing was when they were showing the examples of the interpretive signs, the type of interpretive signs, everybody liked those windows on the past, those sort of acrylic transparent overlays where you could put it, facing into the site to see what it would have looked like at the time. I think 3/4 of the respondents thought those were the best option. Already, and some of them are going to be combined, like the scavenger hunt option with, wait for it, QR codes, I think would be incorporated into those windows on the past, so you've got the image, but then you click through to get the fuller story, because everybody likes where that leads to on the Historic Society website. I think that this project is another one that will grow longer legs as it goes. The number of organizations that is interested is pretty high. And there's no downsides here, right? There's nothing to say you don't want here. We've got the asset. We're trying to enhance it. We have demonstrated, proof of concept from before we even initiated the project, right? With the Historic Society guided tours and the DIY signs that Paul Provost made. The pieces are all in place. It's our job over the next couple of years to make it permanent. So it's just another thing for me to do. To write a bunch of grants.
There you go. You have a purpose.
I do have a purpose.
Okay, next up is the Airline Trail Z-Card brochure. And we're going to ask to take a vote to authorize $3,000 to cover the ZMAP brochures.
And let's be clear that that is coming out of some of those socked away grant funds that we were talking about earlier. Some of the money that was reimbursed by TLGV and Eastern Connecticut Association of Realtors, Orla does have in a grant remittance fund. So we need to show in the minutes that we are opting to use those dollars for this project. To be paid to Connecticut RC&D. They're acting as the fiduciary.
Tara, do we have enough in those funds already to cover the full 3,000?
You bet your bippy.
Okay, I make a motion that we take those funds that were just referred to and allocate them for the Z-fold Chamber of Commerce type map.
I will second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're good for moving the $3,000.
Yep. So Ashley, when you note that in the minutes, make sure that you note that it is to be paid to Connecticut RC&D as the fiduciary agent for the Z-Card brochure project.
Okay, got it.
Thanks.
Tara, how much space are we actually going to have to put any information on there? I know we're sharing that brochure with several other municipalities, but I don't know how many, I'll call them windows, how many little windows there are on the back of the map that would allow.
Oh, you are going to love how this all panned out. So how this got proposed and accepted by ERTD, and I worked it out with Jean at Connecticut RC&D. They are, as soon as they have all the municipal funds in hand from the 7 partner towns, going to issue a design RFQ for all the design work. So the physical brochures and the digital landing page stuff that has to be associated with it. Each town is going to have their own set of brochures. So the way I organized it is the ERTD funds, the $25,000 in match funds, are going to all go towards the design, whatever design needs to be done for the print items, for the digital items, for the digital jumps, the tie-ins to CP Visit, Airline Trail, blah, blah, blah. Because that's all common to all the users. Each municipality that gives in, those dollars are going towards the production of the brochures, and they come in at about 50 cents a piece. So for $3,000, we will get 6,000 brochures, with one side of the map being the full airline trail and the flip side of the map being all Thompson, to feature whatever local assets we want. And then we're going to be hanging it onto a template that's going to come out of that design RFQ.
You're right, I do like that. I like it a lot.
I knew you would.
Great.
Okay, let's go on to ERTD grant status.
Well, that was just it. we just did it.
So was I supposed to get rid of that one or combine? This is what I mean. I go through this and everything's initials. Okay. 6-month project update, POCD.
Yeah, so the last thing I need from this commission is to posit their suggested action steps. We've already got some that came out of the earlier part because I've been writing them down. A goal to meet with other EDC chairs, formalize process for welcoming new businesses, organize events on an annual basis for Small Business Saturdays, further website enhancement, establish a revolving account for profit-making EDC initiatives. But what else, guys? Remember, this is a 10-year plan. They don't have to be in any order. They barely even have to have much flesh on their bones. If you can articulate to me what you want to do, look at over the next 10 years, short, long, medium term things you want to turn your attention to, they're going in this document.
Yeah, we're
This is a
already including everything
conservation.
that I had thought of so
The
far.
conservation and development document that we've been working on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want suggestions now? Because one thing I did not hear is I really believe it will help us to make sure that we're tied into that TAP grant for the airline trail.
That is referenced in other spots, Charlie, but I can include that here as well.
Okay, that's something that I think is one of our important points not to overlook in any way at all. And even on a shorter term, I think that this commission should have an official note to the Board of Selectmen asking their support to get work done by our DPW now that the paving season is over. I keep getting things on social media about, gee, it's too bad that that section between Sandam Road and Lowell Davis is in such rough shape. And I knew that they weren't going to be able to do anything on it until the paving season was done. But I don't want it to just sit and not have anything done.
Okay. Who else has something for me?
Here,
Be ambitious, guys.
I imagine you have something about the formalization of the pop-up village somewhere?
It's definitely discussed in the section, but that's exactly why we're here, to make sure that it does get fully articulated within the goals. Because I didn't add the list of suggested action steps here yet, because this is one of the commissions where I have such regular contact. I want them to set them themselves. But yeah, I'm noting that right here. Pop-ups, program.
What about the overall support? And I don't even, I'm just gonna, you can articulate it, I'm sure, better than me, but for the whole downtown area in conjunction with the mill redevelopment. I know that ties in with 65, but what are other things that,
Yeah.
I mean, housing affects EDC, you know what I mean? Like there's so much in this area.
I don't know if this was related or not, but I'll segue off of that. I was going to say proper promotion and marketing of the new planning and zoning regulations that kind of already has all of Renee's items that she just outlined there.
That's a good one, Brian.
And we already have in there somewhere to review the zoning on an annual basis.
Yeah, well, that was
that's a goal somewhere in here. It's in the infrastructure section, I believe.
Okay.
Either infrastructure or housing, or maybe even reiterated in a couple of places, because that has happened here. The same goal has been articulated for under different topics because they're interrelated, and that is partly to emphasize how important those goals are, and that they are the functions of more than one entity. And that is probably one of them, the review of the zoning regs. It's definitely something that Joe Perotti and I have talked about since the adoption of the new book, not least because even right off the bat, and we knew this would happen, we're discovering little things where we meant something, but maybe we didn't get it exactly right. So every year, I want that commission to look at that book and say, hey, we discovered these problems during this year, so we're going to fix them now to make it do what we meant it to do.
Yeah, I've noticed a few minor things like the word junkyard. I don't know if that's appropriate anymore, but anyway, we'll get to those.
Do we have something?
It may be
Not like
appropriate to
trailer
make,
park.
Yeah, like that.
it may be appropriate to make sure that we specified an annual review of the webpage. Branding meeting last week when we were reviewing the marketing plan, it came up that there were some things that should be looked at and that we may have to wait another year before the contractor that developed it will be able, as part of the original pricing, to be able to do anything about updating it. But each of the commissions and boards and departments should have a review of their web pages on a, I would say on an ongoing basis, but at least on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Good point. Put it in writing somewhere, right, Charlie?
Yeah, put it in writing as one of our action plans on an annual basis.
I think Brian L. is trying to say something.
Yeah, I'm driving here, but do we want to include something? I understand they're private property and we're not realtors, but it is economic development. Do we want to address the two probably biggest economic development opportunities and what our role will be in terms of the abandoned mill site that is still for sale and the future activity for the St. Joseph school site?
And while you're mentioning it, the rail to trail and the rail to industrial park.
Kira,
Yes.
what about like trying to tie what Brian was saying about conducting a yearly audit of all available commercial or industrial property available for sale? So, I mean, that is going to be in the document for 10 years. You don't necessarily want to specifically mention, I suppose, let's hope it's not still like that in 10 years.
It might be.
It will not be. Whatever happens, it will not be exactly the same.
So
I've been here 6 years now and nothing's happened.
Hey, look, I just got here, brother. Give me a chance.
Ryan,
You've been here 5 years.
I've been here long enough to see that Belding's Mill ripped down. So that was something, but it was in the wrong direction.
My father passed in 2007 and he had dementia a few years before that. And every time we took that corner, he'd say, "Isn't that a shame?"
Yeah. It was here when I got here and then it wasn't.
It's not something we can rent. It's not something we can lease. It's not something we can build ourselves, but it is part of the economic development of the town, in addition to the grand list. And in some way, we, as an EDC, have some kind of active interest in helping to make that those productive sites, among others.
Tira.
I can tell you that I've had more than one conversation with people interested, at least in a very, very abstract way, in that property. It always comes with well, we've had the phase 1 and phase 2 done, and here's the deal with the contamination. As contamination goes in terms of the Belding site, I can tell you that it's actually really not that bad. But you're looking at the cost of the property over again for the estimated remediation costs, which, by the way, is not that much for a brownfield remediation, but you're still talking about essentially paying for the property twice, and that's before you even build anything.
Right.
So
Isn't there a way to get brownfields remediation grants? Again, being with all my time on the Shelton economic development, the money they get from the state for brownfields remediations is just amazing. And it would seem, and I don't know all the details, but it would seem if that money's out there and we're applying for it, unless because it's private property, I don't know.
Yeah, the
But-
private property is the key there. You're cracking up, Brian, so I'll just interrupt you. The private property element is the key. It is not an insurmountable obstacle, but the ways in which it is surmounted are complicated.
Tira, now,
Yes,
mill sites, now, wasn't that a potential property that would be considered by that land bank?
yes. But in order for it to be considered by the land bank, a couple of types of things have to happen. Either the private owner himself has to decide to unload it to the land bank or seek the assistance of the land bank, in which case that would be more of a technical assistance than anything else. Private owner might be eligible for grants, but it's more likely that the land bank itself would be eligible if they were able to take title. The only way the land bank can take title is either if the current owner
Switching
gives it
from a
up to him,
car to Wi-Fi.
or
in there.
yeah, we can hear you, Brian.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, just came home and now I'm trying to put in headphones so I can hear you. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so the options are either the private owner, for whatever reason, has to decide to transfer that title to the land bank, which, is not impossible. If it's a big enough liability and headache, maybe you would do it just to get out from underneath the tax burden. The other option, which is the more common one, but the one that is more delicate, is the town calls the note, essentially, for the back taxes. So the complication with that property is that it is currently owned by the same owner as 929 Riverside, which means that until the ink is dry on that deal, nobody wants to rock that boat. So is it a problem that can potentially be solved with the assistance of the land bank? Yes, it is. And that's why Ms. Rack has been talking about and to the land bank, and why Janet and I went last night to the Board of Selectmen and told them about the land bank and that this is something that should be on their radar. It's like everything else, slower than molasses in January, moving at the speed of democracy, which is a cart with square wheels that everybody has to get out and push at the same time to move forward by one pace. But there are clear paths.
And that's true, but as part of the POCD, that might all be worth mentioning, since that's what we're talking about. I don't know.
Oh, yes.
Want to include all the other
yes.
details of that, but that should be in there. I think that's what I'm aiming for.
Yep. And we can include that as an EDC with goals specific to EDC in that as well. Yes, I think that's totally appropriate. Joanne, you've been quiet.
Yeah, because I'm in agreement with what everyone has said so far, and I was glad some of the points that were brought up were brought up. So, along with what Brian had mentioned, I agree with what he wants to do, but I don't think we should put any specific addresses in this booklet or in this plan, since they're for 10 years. So, I don't know. I just hate mentioning the building mill site today, because hopefully 10 years from now it won't be a problem, but maybe we could use it as maybe when we reference it as an example of the building mill site, and not make it like the primary subject of our concern about that particular type of property. And
yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea to be putting in any commercial properties that are for sale updated once a year. But those things, they're very fluid. They change all the time. So it doesn't make sense to put them in. You know what I mean? Especially if it's a fast market. It's a property that's for sale today isn't going to be for sale 6 months from now.
Yeah, I can phrase that more generically around things like brownfields or mill sites in general.
You know, just using a different phrase instead of not specifically mentioning buildings or mill sites or, specific addresses.
Yep. Yeah.
Do we want something,
else
or do
we
we
want?
have something in there about, remember our talking about the business incubator?
Well, that's the 65 Main project. So again,
Yes.
it's described in our ongoing initiatives. And yes, I will also I'll also include it under the suggested action steps, some kind of order of action. Just speaking of grants again, I just sent one out this week to the local foods, local places assistance program to see if we could get some help from them with the public workshop process. As I have pointed out, the programming of a future business incubator can move ahead prior to it having a home. And if the home has to switch to another location, even if that's a disappointment, you know, if another suitable space comes up where that can be done, then yes, we can shift the program someplace else if we have to. Not the way I want to approach it, not the way I think it should be done, but you always have to have be cultivating multiple options. So,
Sure, wouldn't there be space, I'm thinking, in the mill? I mean, I think it would be.
There might be. There might be. He certainly got plenty of square footage in there.
And he did have, actually, there was a grant that Sean Donahoe got, and there was an incubator area set up. I mean, there's definitely, obviously, the space.
Well, wasn't that grant the one that they defaulted on? That's the reason that all that money had to go back to the state, and the reason there's all those liens over there?
Could be, but the project got done. I just think it would make a really probably good spot for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good alternate spot. It doesn't have my favorite word, synergy of the planned site. So that's going to be our primary. But yes, I mean, there's other I mean, there's that house across that Superior Bakery wants to unload, right? They haven't talked any more about that. That house needs a lot more work, but exists, and it's in the target neighborhood and is attached to a food system business. So, you know, there's consistency there as well. One way or another, this project's going to go forward. That's just the way that is. So that was a long answer to your question, Brian Yacino, that yes.
Thank you for the concise answer.
I can't help myself.
I know.
I'm not even drunk.
And it wasn't even me that was offering all that explanation.
Yeah,
And thank you, Charlie.
I know.
Yes, thank you, Charlie.
It's like
Anybody
a
else
disease.
have anything else to add to the suggestion list?
This is your Christmas list.
How about, you might want to specify on there that we have an annual review of open space that may be available for recreation or for acquisitions by such groups as Wyndham Land Trust. And right now, what I'm mostly thinking about is the Boy Scouts of Rhode Island own a large piece of property in Thompson. And I don't know, I've tried to reach out to them and they haven't replied. I don't know what their long-term plans are, but I do know that the Boy Scouts are in kind of a downsizing mode. So it might be that property would be available, but if we would have to reach out to these large property owners.
Charlie, where's that?
That is off of Aquatic Farmtown Road, and it's between that road and the state line. It's a very large tract that comes up against the LeClaire property that Wyndham Land Trust owns, and it also comes up against some of the land that is owned by the Aquatic State Park area.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I probably have enough here between what we've already got in the section that I can peel action items out of and what we have tonight. But if anybody does have anything else, now is the time to bring it up. I got to have a draft completed by the 30th. So this is the last hurrah on adding adding line items.
How about conservation easements where necessary for, there's two of them up in the project area of the train wreck park that I don't think that the town has any kind of a formula or a fill in the blank kind of a process that would allow for ease of acquiring the correct forms to get those easements.
That wouldn't be directly in for EDC to work on, would it? Wouldn't that be
I don't
planning,
know.
zoning?
I'm thinking in terms of conservation and development, and part of this conservation to me is a conservation easement specifically.
Yeah, I think Yacino is right, Charlie. We're trying to narrow our focus to the specific topic of economic development in this section.
Okay.
I have a lot going on in reference to conservation and trails and open space and wetlands. So in terms of a narrow focus for this topic, I think the tie-in to economic development should be clear. Like, I think there's a clear tie-in to Trainwreck Park, right? Because that's a tourism asset that we're developing and driving. I think the conservation easement is a less clear economic development initiative. It may have some collateral value there, but the main purpose of that is the preservation of open and green space. And that's extensively discussed in the sections on agriculture and conservation and stuff. So I think that topic gets a lot of treatment.
Okay.
I mean, it's good to bring it up. Make sure you're making sure it's covered, Charlie. So.
Well, especially when I heard the third time, it's, make your requests known.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe I should say, except Charlie, because I already know what he wants.
oh, come on.
But at least Charlie knows that it's
I'm
covered.
that predictable and transparent.
Well, maybe a little, Charlie.
Okay.
You might be a little predictable.
Okay, moving on. I think we've got that agenda item covered.
Okay. The next step is we have the CME wayfinding plan and signage, and we do have a note that you asked for $157,000, like you said.
Yep.
So we've covered.
Once I get the very last, the only thing, since you mentioned IOB there, once I get the very last invoice from CHA and pay that out of the IOB funds, whatever's left there, I will then turn around and encumber towards the town hall electronic sign. That's the only additional piece of information.
Yep. All right, then 65 Main, you would ask for the $25,000 from the State Farm grant.
I did, and I got rejected yesterday, but that's okay. It just means we'll regroup and look for the next option, the next opportunity. Santos and I are going to meet on Friday. He and Sean Copeland worked up a new and more comprehensive estimate. Sadly, from my point of view, it came in higher than I'd hoped, but that is at least partly because when Jason LaValle did the first one, he was just giving me raw costs. He wasn't factoring in contingencies, the inflation in costs for construction materials over the year, I think has been significant. Yeah, so Brian and I are going to meet, and our plan, Brian, is what we're gonna parcel it out so that we can phase it, identify, maybe what can be done by volunteer labor, what has to be done professionally, what's a good candidate for grants, that kind of thing, so that we can
I think
present
we'll
it
walk
in
through it.
pieces.
We'll walk through the line by line estimate that I put together, and And then the key word is this strategize, right? On how we're going to
Yep.
about it. So I think we can just talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, the final item here is just an update on 929, the mill.
Yeah, Gumpert's going to come in on Monday to P&Z and do an informal presentation with a concept plan. If anybody wants to dial in, that should be interesting.
Oh,
He sent that over last night, this morning. Very, very preliminary. I mean, really just a sketch of the inside of, a nice sketch, a CAD sketch of the inside of the building with the numbered units and a summary of what uses are intended for which portions of the building. So he just wants to figure out what level of review he's going to need from the commission, if any members of the commission see any stumbling blocks. I've told him what I think, the proper order of action is, but it's, the commission and the CEO who are the arbiters of that. So he's going to show it to them, see what they think, get them interested. And that's this Monday night, if anybody feels like dialing in for the entertainment factor.
and the last I heard, the construction was postponed, put out a year to 2022. The start of
Yeah,
the,
I think that's partly COVID and partly just, again, the speed of government. His main financer is going to be HUD. So everything's just so slow in that process. But I think he's pretty close to getting all his ducks in a row there. He sounds very confident that everything is going to plan. I don't think he was fazed by the extra year at all. And the fact that he is now looking to come talk about it publicly without us prompting him to do so, I think shows that he's turned a mental corner in his process.
yeah, sounds good. Okay, well, we're through the agenda. The last step is comments from commission members.
Yeah, Brian, I had a few here. I know Renee jumped off the call, and I know we've talked about this many times before. When she brought up formalized program for new businesses, I couldn't help but think about that welcome letter again. I don't know. Are we utilizing that welcome letter? I'm sorry for the dumb question if we are, but
Yeah, we haven't in the last few months.
yeah, because I just the welcome letter is, it's very basic, and then I think we were attaching the meeting dates for people to at least have an opportunity to come to this meeting and speak. So I don't know if Renee knows that we actually have that welcome letter, but
Yeah, we have it. Yeah, well, like Renee said, I was making an effort to actually see the businesses.
no, I know it.
And because in the face-to-face is, pretty much
Yeah, it's gonzo.
on hold, so.
Yeah.
Because I think there's nothing like meeting them in person and.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I like shaking people's hands too, and it's just not possible anymore right now.
Yeah, and we'll get back to it. It's just.
Yeah. All right. One of the other items I wanted to bring up, and it's maybe not EDC related, but I'll just say it's community related, is that the building committee is, I want to use the wrong word here, but I'm going to say highly interested in investigating replacing the school track. And I had some subs come out and start to do the preliminary analysis on how we accomplish that and get it to be a shovel-ready project. So I just wanted this group to know that is in the works. And it's something that's being investigated, and trying to help out where I can with the construction aspect of it.
Why do you want to move the track?
We're not moving it. We're just redoing it, Joanne.
Oh,
we're
Oh,
fixing.
I have heard that that track is essentially one step above a trail race.
It pretty much is. We can't use it for any formalized events because it's so broken. So
Wow.
the community uses a lot for walking, and obviously the school's using it for like just randomness. But we're looking into replacing it in its current location because it's in a great spot, as everyone knows, right? So
Yeah,
just be aware that that's going on in the background.
okay.
And I as I mentioned moments ago about the planning and zoning regulations, I don't know how to go about promoting or marketing that, but I'm hoping that others that are on the call right now are asking others about how we can go about doing that. And maybe that's Sullivan and Lachey, just poking their brains about that. Or maybe that's even what you brought up earlier, Bri, about meeting with other EDC chairmen and groups about how do we go about promoting new things that the town has developed, such as a planning and zoning regulation. I don't know the first thing about how to do that, but I feel like it's such a great document that we need to do that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, at least highlight it on the website and
Yeah,
selectmen's letter, that kind of stuff.
I should probably get a copy of that, of the new regs over to Peter Lang, first of all, since he's our primary commercial broker. And to Rachel, she's got a few commercial properties.
Oh.
Joanne, do you do any commercial properties? You just do residentials.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I can do commercial, but I try to stick to what I know best. So
Yeah.
I don't. But Thompson doesn't. We don't have that many commercial properties for sale. But it is a good idea to let the local realtors. And you're right, Rachel and Peter Lang. At least the brokers that are in this town should have at their fingertips the zoning regs, because every town is different. And it's impossible to know every town's regs anyway.
well,
Yeah, and even for primarily residential brokers, Joanne, I think the fact that we've just made mixed uses in properties so
Yeah.
viable.
yeah.
First floor stores, 2 apartments above. You can build on a 4,500 square foot lot if it's got private water and sewer and public water and sewer. Those are new developments.
But see, any agent, if they get a listing in a particular area, and especially now on the Main Street area, since the zoning regs have changed, I mean, a good realtor will go to the town hall and see what the property is zoned. So therefore, in their comments, in their marketing of the property, they will definitely put in their comments what it is, what it can be, and what its potential can be as well. So, unfortunately, it doesn't make sense to send out the regs to every realtor in the area now, because they're not going to read them. They're
Right.
only interested once they get a listing, and then they go to the town to see how it's zoned. I mean, if it's a regular house, obviously you don't go checking on the zoning regs. But if I were to get a listing now on Main Street, I would certainly go and see what other things the property could be used for, because that would help in promoting the marketing of it.
Right.
Yeah, I know we were gonna, and I'm not gonna do it tonight, but Tira just kind of hit on a major point of the new regs with the mixed use allowance. But there's a couple other, major things that I feel like are very important just for this group to know. It's the 7 districts. There's a color coded map that lists very clearly where those districts are. The regulations themselves are much easier to read and follow, and the districts are outlined with very specific information. And I feel like it's just a very good promotion of the town on how well organized we are and how willing we are to allow these businesses to come in. I think it's very, very important for people to know that.
Now, see this, what you just put online. Is this map on the wall in Donna's office?
It is, yes, I gave her a new copy of this. It's also on the wall in the little vestibule between Cindy's office and mine, and of course it is online.
Right,
The only
but,
thing what we don't have yet, because we haven't had enough time, is the new codes for the district
okay.
do not appear in the listings if you pull something up on the parcel map. In other words, things still say R20, R40,
Yeah.
but that's going to
okay.
take some time.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. But, you know, if this is on the assessor's wall upstairs, you know, this is going to be, if it's in the hallway where just before you turn into the assessor's office, I know that there's already a map up there, but this is very helpful to anybody who, especially it should be on the wall upstairs.
I know it.
Yeah, Donna definitely has a copy. We have a copy, obviously. I will check with Paul. I can't remember if I gave him a copy or not.
But when you say a copy, are you talking 8.5 by 11?
No, I'm talking. We have a large format printer.
Oh,
That's where
okay,
these
all
things
right. I
come
mean,
from.
a big map. I mean, like a poster.
Yeah, it's a 2x3.
Oh, terrific. Okay, all right. So that's terrific because that's where people tend to go, and that's the where they're going to head. So that's where they want to see the map. So that's a great idea, and also it must be on the website too, on the town's website, correct?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so just give that some thought. I'll conclude it there, but I feel like there should be some sort of formalized process with that. But again, I don't know where to begin, but that's all the comments that I had, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
I have a
Anybody
couple-
else?
Yes, they were mostly inspired by what Brian just said. Number one, in addition to the track up at the high school needing to be redone, is there a tennis court there? Brian LaFrido brought this to my attention a short while ago. Tennis and also volleyball could be good assets that should be looked at. And if there is a tennis court, does it need to be refurbished as well?
I believe the answer to your latter question is that tennis court is in about the same condition as the track.
All right, then I think we want to put that on the same proposal.
Sure. I can look at that, Charlie, and present that
Okay.
to the building committee. Yep.
A second point that came to mind as you were talking is, yes, we would. We'd love to be able to meet face to face and shake hands and be all social with everybody. But I think we should probably reach out to all of the other EDC commissions within this area of the state and invite them specifically to join us on the Zoom meetings and ask them when their meetings are, and that we should put an agenda item in there that says comments from other EDC, what are you doing? Because maybe just reaching out and bringing them in on our Zoom meetings, we might find that as early as December or January, somebody would have been already here to say, "Oh, I know what to do about the public, marketing your new zoning codes. We've just done that."
Yep.
Something
Oh,
like that effect.
I hesitate to do that, Charlie.
All right.
Enough without
It just seems like another one of those
the
things. That the
attendance.
longer we wait, the longer it takes.
Well,
so.
no, I'm not talking about not talking to them, but having meetings with 4 groups is probably not going to be productive.
No,
I think it's worse in the new year.
What I was suggesting is that right now we've got a spot on the agenda that's comments by commissioners, and we have a spot on the agenda that's comments by community members. But what if we added one that says comments by other neighboring EDCs and invite them to Zoom in and monitor it?
Again, I would say that if we get the EDC chairs talking, we can start with that and just information and not getting a bunch of groups zooming in.
All right.
The problem with that for right now is that looking at these other groups, there's one group who had one meeting in July and it sounds like they're brand new. Why are we here? No, and I'm not exaggerating. They're right now, they're not in a position to even offer anything.
Yeah.
I will reach out to them, and I'm looking forward to, a few months down the road, maybe there's something constructive that can come from this.
There is a flip side to that, Brian, which is, and it goes back to sort of the way we were talking about this at the beginning of the meeting, in how much further along this group is than many of their peer organizations. There is nothing wrong with the idea of being a leader in this as well, because it would be good for the profile of this community to make it clear that this EDC is forward thinking. They are constantly pushing innovative projects, many of which arise at the grassroots level, and to serve also as a role model. I do agree that the first things that should happen before that dialogue is that it should be a meeting of chairs. Because you don't know what the tenor is of certain communities. Someplace, I can't remember which of my counterparts from which town it was who was telling me that their EDC seems entirely determined to make sure that nothing actually happens, right?
Oh
that it's like an anti-development perspective. And I'm sure you'll see that here and there, yeah. So I would say the chairs first and then open it up. The simple answer to your question, Charlie, is that citizens' comments is very broad and should be just more viewed as guest comments. Anybody can comment under that. The people who aren't necessarily residents of Thompson, but it's also no big sweat to circulate our agendas to other EDCs. Those are simple things, right. and I can include that in a part of that communicate with EDC as a goal in the POCD. I'll say one more thing about.
Well, I would tend to, start with chairs, see how it's going. We could invite groups in for specific reasons and topics, so it's not a free-for-all. At least to start, see how 2021 goes, getting in contact with these people. Yeah.
Sure. I'll make one more comment about the zoning regulations, because it's something that I'm going to bring up on Monday. But it was last week. It was either the week I came back from vacation or the week before I left. I think it was the week I came back. I dialed into a webinar, a land use webinar for an organization called Desegregate CT. I knew some of the presenters. It was great topics. Everybody needs to know that what we just did with the Thompson zoning regulations, without having had this as a specific goal, is hitting every single one of the best practices that land use professionals all over the state and to a large extent the country are recommending to break down income inequality, build resilience in communities, and build economic resilience. All that stuff about encouraging density in central regions and mixed use and bashing down your minimum lot sizes as much as you can and making missing middle types of housing available and building ADUs. We just did it, right? Little Thompson, to go back to one of Charlene's terms, Little Thompson off in the corner, the forgotten corner, the this, the that. There is a lot coming out of this town that is very forward thinking. And because nobody likes to toot their own horns, we don't outside our small circle of friends, as Phil Oakes would have said back in the day. Yeah. Great song.
Wonderful.
But this stuff is real and it's major, and it is going to start to have a cumulative effect. So don't be afraid to be leaders in this field as volunteers, because you guys are doing the work.
Thank you, Tara. What you said about we can be role models to other organizations of our type that's a dimension that I didn't articulate, but it's something that I was thinking about. Honestly, we're either going to be growing as a community or we're going to become the haunted corner. You know, we'll just turn into a real ghost town because you got to be one or the other.
Well, that's
You
what we've
have
been
to be-
saying for 10 years, which is why we started all this.
Yep.
And my only comment is Tira's not old enough to remember Phil Oakes and a Small Circle of Friends.
Oh,
I most certainly am
was a
old enough
DJ.
to remember it. I used to sing that song
Yeah, but that was long
along
after
with
he
a
did.
vinyl copy on a turntable.
'Cause
I
you
could
were about
probably
40
still
when he came out with that.
I still
Yeah,
have
but
the
is it-
vinyl copy.
Yeah, as it turns out, the records lasted longer than me being 4, so I could probably sing that song cold.
I do remember it. Anyway, we'll do that another.
We'll do that another. Okay.
We'll,
Hey, I'm out. Are we adjourning pretty soon?
Yeah,
I think we
I'm
are, and I was,
if we're done with singing, I'm ready to adjourn.
Okay.
Ash, are you ready?
Good night.
Adjourn at, next meeting is December 16th,
Yep.
6:30 PM, and I actually put in via Zoom this time.
Yeah.
But all hopes are dashed for 2020.
Hey, see you next time.
Yep, I'd
See
like
you
to
guys.
adjourn at 8:17.
Stay safe. Do whatever you can do safely for Thanksgiving, and
Yeah, happy holiday, guys.
Take
happy
care.
Thanksgiving. I'll
Yep,
see
me
you on
too.
Friday, Santo.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Back to you
Good night.
soon.
Bye.
Renee?
Bye.